Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, creating bathrooms for daily rejuvenation. More at callmosby.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Friday, February 21st. I'm Abby Larico. For residents of 2 St. Louis wards, there's more than just the mayor and the comptroller on the ballot in the March primary. 6 candidates are vying to represent the 3rd and 11th wards at City Hall. The top 2 from each race advance to the April general election. You'll hear from those seeking office coming up after this news on The Gateway. St. Louis Public Schools Board of Education has appointed Millicent Borashade as the district superintendent. STLPR's Hiba Ahmed reports.
During a Tuesday night meeting, the SLPS Board of Education voted to install Borashade as a district superintendent. Borashade has been serving in an interim capacity since last year, when former Superintendent Keisha Scarlett was placed on leave. She was later fired by the board after they learned she had violated hiring policies and misused district funds. Scarlett has denied any wrongdoing. According to board member Emily Hubbard, the board did not conduct a formal search for the district's top job, despite that being normal protocol. The board also voted to install Ben Conover, a local organizer in St. Louis, as the 7th member of the board after former board member Sadie Weiss resigned in January. He will be sworn in next week. I'm Hiba Ahmed, St. Louis Public Radio.
A former St. Louis sheriff's deputy says he was illegally terminated by Sheriff Alfred Montgomery. Tony Kirchner, who's currently running for First Ward Alderman, says he was taking bereavement and tried to extend his leave. He says Montgomery told him to roll a pair of gold dice to keep his job. He was later terminated. Kirchner says Montgomery used a photo of him campaigning wearing a sheriff's hat as part of his reasoning, but Kirchner says he hadn't filed to run yet. He and his lawyers say the sheriff's office is systematically dismantling the department and targeting white workers.
My dignity, my everything came down to the roll of a dice for a 12-year career. I mean, I didn't believe it myself. I'm still speechless.
Montgomery declined to comment. Kirchner's lawyers say he should be reinstated. The Missouri House has passed legislation that places the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department under state control. Members of the House voted 106 to 47 to pass the legislation. If the bill becomes law, a 5-person board would assume control of the police department, that board being made up of the mayor and 4 appointed commissioners. Representative Brad Christ is the sponsor of the legislation. After the bill passed, he said the Senate will likely discuss who would serve on that board.
So I think most of the negotiations will be around the board structure and who's able to be eligible for the board structure.
Most Democrats voted no on the bill. Speaking after the vote, St. Louis Representative Marlon Anderson says he hopes the bill dies in the Senate. The Missouri House has also passed a bill that bars state funds from going to initiatives related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. St. Louis Public Radio's Sarah Kellogg reports.
The legislation stops state funds from going towards programs, staffing, or other initiatives related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Republican Representative Ben Baker, the bill's sponsor, said Missouri tax dollars should not be spent on these initiatives. Speaking before the vote, Democratic Representative Rachel Prouty said she was disappointed in the bill.
No matter what we do to marginalize each other instead of, fighting the people who are really oppressing us, you've allowed them to convince you to divide us even further, and it works every time.
The action from the House came the same week as Governor Mike Kehoe issued an executive order that eliminates diversity, equity, and inclusion programs within the state government. In Jefferson City, I'm Sarah Kellogg, St. Louis Public Radio.
The Missouri Senate gave bipartisan approval yesterday to an anti-hazing bill. It's named after Danny Santulli, a former University of Missouri student who suffered alcohol poisoning leading to permanent brain damage during a fraternity event in 2021. The bill would protect witnesses who call 911 to help someone in need of medical attention as a result of hazing. The bill's sponsor, Senator Curtis Gregory, says the goal of the bill is to make sure people don't delay calling for help.
Families that have lost lives, They said we would much rather have our child still alive and in good health as opposed to, as what's unfortunately happened to many college students throughout the years, that no one rendered the aid and they now no longer have their son or daughter.
The bill will now go to the House of Representatives. A trial that could decide the fate of Missouri's abortion ban is scheduled to take place early next year. STLPR Sarah Fenton reports.
Voters last year approved Amendment 3, which placed the right to an abortion in the state's constitution, but legal action was still needed to allow abortion in the state. Planned Parenthood affiliates and the ACLU sued to overturn the ban, saying it was now unconstitutional. Judge Jerry Jung of Jackson County in December issued a temporary order that put the ban and other rules for abortion clinics on hold. A formal trial is now scheduled for January 2026 to decide the fate of the ban and the regulations. A second ruling last week put a hold on other facility restrictions, clearing the way for abortions to resume in Missouri. The state's attorney general has not stated if he plans to appeal Judge Jung's preliminary orders. I'm Sarah Fenton, St. Louis Public Radio.
A St. Louis doctor is facing 35 months in prison and an order to repay nearly $750,000 in improper charges to Medicare and Missouri Medicaid. Dr. Sonny Sager said in court last year he failed to supervise assistant physicians he hired for 2 St. Louis General Hospital locations. Then he billed Medicare and Missouri Medicaid as if he saw the patients personally. He also told the unsupervised assistants to consult with each other about patient care, despite the legal requirement for qualified doctors to oversee the treatments. Homicides in East St. Louis dropped to the lowest level last year in nearly a decade. That's according to new data released by the Illinois State Police yesterday, as STLPR's Will Bauer reports.
Last year, Illinois State Police recorded 20 homicides in East St. Louis. The city's murder totals peaked in recent history at 37 in 2017. In 2020, the City Police Department and ISP launched a new partnership to build trust in the community by connecting victims to local services. State Police Director Brendan Kelly told Illinois Public Media the model deserves the credit. Kelly also says law enforcement is always trying to do better.
Is this working? Is this worth a damn? Is this really doing something? It's not just a show, but is it really making a difference in this community? And with this model that we have, it does appear to be making a difference.
Meanwhile, non-fatal shootings also dropped last year. I'm Will Bauer, St. Louis Public Radio.
When the St. Louis County Animal Shelter opens tomorrow, new hands will hold the keys. STLPR's Jessica Rogan reports on the anxiety that surrounds the county retaking control.
The Animal Protective Association has run the shelter for 5 years and has been credited with improving it. Advocates worried for the animals, especially when the county announced it would end the shelter's volunteer program. Those fears worsened this month when a plan to use widespread euthanasia to manage population levels got out. The county says it will not use the plan. Jenny Agnew volunteered when the county ran the shelter. She says words aren't enough.
I think people are very scared. So I think the only thing that could help allay people's fears about this is to be allowed in there.
The county announced yesterday that it will launch a pilot volunteer program. I'm Jessica Rogan, St. Louis Public Radio.
This weekend, the Blues are back in action tomorrow night after the Four Nations face-off break, hosting the Winnipeg Jets, and so is City SC, opening the MLS season at Energizer Park, the new name for City Park, remember, with a match against the Colorado Rapids. Early voting is underway for St. Louis's municipal primary. In addition to the races for mayor and comptroller, there are competitive primaries to represent the Third and 11th Wards at the Board of Aldermen. St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Lippmann introduces us to the legislative candidates.
Alderwoman Laura Keyes estimates she fills up her gas tank twice a week as she travels through the 11th Ward. The ward covers parts of 6 neighborhoods. It's a study in contrasts. Vacant lots and crumbling homes dot its northern half near Fairground and O'Fallon Parks. Down south, near St. Louis University, brand new apartments sit atop a gleaming Target. Keyes and her 2 opponents agree that development is the top issue in the ward. But Keyes says she's the only one with a track record of success.
We're bringing in the Negro Baseball Hall of Fame in addition to a 36-unit senior building, and we're building more houses over on Prairie, just south of St. Louis Avenue.
2025 marks Melinda Long's 4th attempt to return to City Hall. She briefly represented parts of what is now the 11th Ward in the early 2000s before being recalled. Long pledges to be a champion of the area to encourage more people to move into the ward.
We do have a development plan, an improvement plan for the area, whereas at the same time, our plan is to market the area for new property owners and new businesses to come into the area.
Political novice Rebecca McLeod was motivated to run for office because she wants 11th Ward residents to have the same experiences and quality of life as their neighbors in suburbia. But she says all the development in the world won't make a difference unless the city helps its residents address underlying trauma.
I'm a big, strong person on behavioral health. We can get everything brand new, but if we don't attack the mindset, it's going to be the same way in the next, next generation.
A more holistic approach to addressing the needs of the city is also high on the list of priorities for Inez Bordeaux. She is one of 2 people challenging longtime Alderman Shane Cohn of the Third Ward in Southeast St. Louis.
We all are craving public safety and community, and the way that we build those things, or the way that we get those things, is by addressing poverty.
The Third Ward includes all or parts of the Dutchtown, Carondelet, Gravois Park, and Mount Pleasant neighborhoods. It has a sizable immigrant population and the largest number of school-aged children in St. Louis. That includes the child of Dallas Adams, the former communications director for Great Rivers Greenway. Adams has been active in various groups in the Dutchtown neighborhood. She says that taught her the importance of a development strategy that redirects incentives from corporations to residents.
It might be slower development, but it would ensure that everybody is able to stay in place and receive those benefits that have had to live through all of the other disinvestments and vacancies so far.
Cohn was first elected to the Board of Aldermen in 2009 and is one of its most senior members. Though his opponents say it's time for a new face, Cohn says that long tenure means he knows how to serve the ward's residents. For example, he says, he understands that something that seems as simple as closing down a nuisance property can be a complicated process.
Whether that's pulling police and city councilor, building division, water division, DFS, DHS to the table to have those conversations and coordinate a response, which sometimes can take months.
Cohn, who has endorsed Mayor Tashara Jones for re-election, is the only one of the 6 to make a public statement of support for any candidate in any citywide race. But he says that does not mean he'll back her unconditionally. Polls open at 6 a.m. on March 4th. The top 2 candidates in each race will move on to April's general election. I'm Rachel Lippmann, St. Louis Public Radio.
Our Fred Ehrlich edited that piece. You can find complete coverage of the March primary, including our voter's guide, at stlpr.org. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri-St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Abby Larico, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway. Enjoy the sunshine this weekend.